And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is The Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Special happy anniversary wish to former President Jimmy Carter and his wife, married 76 years today. Good on them. The 97-year-old president been married over 7 decades. And, I just can't even imagine 76 years married together. The longest married presidential couple. There is new record for them. Good on them. I wish them much more and many more years. Also today, our current president, who, think about it this way. I mean, they've been married as long as Joe Biden's been alive. And they're going, Joe Biden's old. No, right now, I got to tell you, I think Biden's hitting some good notes right now. Something I think we need to be doing more of, talking about working people, talking about working class issues. And today handed out a bunch of presidential medals of freedom and to some deserving folks. One of those people, AFL-CIO President Rich Trumka, who passed away last year, talked about, look, the fact that here was a champion of working people. Here was someone who fought for that word he brought up yesterday, dignity. And I think this is an important word, one that I've talked about for years. Respect, dignity, those are the things. That's the wheelhouse. This is where Biden, this is where the Democrats, this is where any politician, this is where they've got to find their home and really hammer on this. But today in the East Room of the White House, the president handed out medals to 17 people. Steve Jobs, former Senator John McCain, Denzel Washington, Simone Biles, a number of folks. In fact, Simone Campbell, who we have had on this program a number of times over the years. You may remember her as the nun on the bus, Sister Simone. She was given one as well. A couple of quips, as Joe can do when introducing Simone Biles. Said she's now got she's added to her medal count of 32. So I thought that was funny. Alan Simpson, the Republican senator from Wyoming, also honored as well. Which, again, in this day and age, you go, really? You think you'd have seen the last administration? No, don't do that. Don't even go there. But AFL-CIO President Rich Trumka being posthumously honored, this is one of those things. And as the president said, no one did more for working Americans than Rich did. For Rich, his work was synonymous with the word that defined his life, dignity. He was fierce, always trying to do the right thing for working people. Rich Trumka was the American worker. And I don't disagree with this. I think Rich was a great guy. I knew him, interviewed him many times here on the program. Somebody who was a true champion of working people. And this is a good honor for his family. Also today, another thing coming out of the administration I'm happy with. A friend of the show, Celeste Drake, former trade and globalization policy person at the AFL. She was right at the beginning, her job, and I loved it. I want this job. It's probably the only thing I would leave doing this to do if I could replace her as the director of Made in America. But she was in the White House's office, the director of Made. How cool would that be? Being the person that ensured that the stuff that you're buying for government procurement was, made here. Domestic production, domestic consumption, using your tax dollars in a way that's going to not just benefit us for what we need, but create the jobs that we have to have. Seems like a good thing, I think. But she has been named to she's Deputy Director of Labor and Economy at the National Economic Council. This is a big step up, and good on Celeste. I know she will do a fabulous job. Now, that stuff got a little bit of coverage, not a lot. There was a story, something. I caught it on the periphery. What was trending? Hunter Biden was trending today, which evidently means that there are no caravans for the right-wing crazies to go scare us with. Gas prices have been coming down like 21 days in a row that's been happening. So, nothing, hair on fire. So, got to pull out some distraction. Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden's trending again. Nobody knows why. Maybe a laptop's going to drop somewhere. But, yeah, Hunter Biden's trending again. Distraction. This is what they do, right? Gotta, hey, shiny thing, over here. Over here. And over on Fox News, what were they talking about today? They had Bill Bennett. Bill Bennett saying that we should consider exorcisms. That's right. We should consider exorcisms. The exorcisms are going to stop the mass shootings. The exorcisms are going to stop the shootings. That's it. We'll do the social media stuff. We'll do but exorcisms. Oh, help us. Help us, please. Now remember, this guy was former education secretary. I mean, he's turned into a real crackpot, and I would argue he was always a crackpot. But this guy was I have to go. He was education secretary under Ronald Reagan. The country went completely to pot during the Reagan era. All of that stuff that happened during the Reagan era that shaped the minds of the wait a second. Yeah, Bill Bennett's the problem. Maybe we should exercise Bill Bennett. Because it was his policies and the policies of the Reagan administration who are the adults, the angry people who are tearing this country to shreds. Just my thought. Love to hear yours. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Good news coming out of California. And you can mark this as Gavin Newsom saying, hey, I'm running for president. Because today, California says they're going to make their own insulin. That's right. They're going to use tax dollars. They're going to create a factory. They're going to create jobs. They're going to manufacture their own insulin and ensure that people in their state get what they need. The Newsom budget that he just signed includes $50 million for developing low-cost insulin and another $50 million for a California-based insulin manufacturing facility. They are going to build it. They are going to make it. They are going to sell it. It's going to benefit the people of California. Now, the ridiculous part of all this is you're looking at the fact that I know people who are paying outrageous rates for insulin. It's crazy. And especially since it's so cheap to make, that you're in this situation that why haven't we already done this? Why haven't we done any of this stuff already? Oh, I know. Socialism. It's socialism. I'm waiting for the Fox News, the Exorcist types to start screaming about socialism. And about how, faith in the American system is breaking down because it's those socialists. No, this is somebody who's going, hey, we've got a problem. The problem is the free market isn't going to solve our problem. We need to do something. We need to act. And this is what I've always said. If the free market cannot or will not, the public sector has to do it. If the private sector can't create enough jobs, or more likely won't create enough jobs to ensure that every person has what they need to be able to get by, then the public sector has a responsibility that they have to. And this is Newsom saying, you know what? We're going to do this. Now, is this a moment where we go, as a country, is this a turning point moment? Because look, we're at a crossroads. We can go full on authoritarian, fascist kind of corporate governance, or we can begin to reclaim the social space. We can begin to reclaim our government and use it in a way that, I don't know, we the people actually want. Isn't it amazing that the policies the vast majority of us are in favor of never seem to get enacted? Isn't it amazing how when you do widespread polling and people go, yeah, we want to do something about homelessness. Yeah, we want to do something about hunger. Yeah, we want to do something about education and healthcare, that nothing ever gets done on those things. But when you say, no, we don't want to give tax cuts to rich people, somehow that happens. Our system's broken. And this is why. Maybe this could be that turning point. This could be that moment where we go, we're we're going to do things a little different. Let's go to the phones. Got Alice on one. Alice, how are you today?
Oh, I'm fine. The only thing I have to say is this, maybe we should do some exorcisms on the Republican Party and the Supreme Court justices. Either that or electroshock therapy.
So that would be fun. I'm sure there'd be some people who would find entertainment in that.
Hey, I'm really thinking electroshock therapy would definitely, that and some heavy-duty psych meds would might help.
See, here's where I go with this. I say we do to conservatives to help cure them of their illness, of what conservatives have been doing to gay people over the years to have their gay conversion therapy. Let's use their tactics to help them. If they work.
Exactly. And hey, that's what they've used the conversion therapy with the electroshock therapy for decades. Pray the gay away. Oh my goodness. I don't know. I think they've all lost their minds, and I didn't hear about the Hunter Biden laptop, but the local Trump supporter did inform me that all these laws being enacted or planning on being enacted about the birth control, that it is the Muslims that's doing it. The Muslims. Yeah.
Oh, which Muslims?
Heck if I know. I just looked at him and I said, no, I don't think so. And then, I proceeded to get a lecture and I tuned it out and thought, not today, Alice, not today. Not in the mood. But, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have to keep an eye on that. I got it. Now we've got to find out where we got to dig in and ferret down to find out where the claim is coming from.
Well, I figured because they were talking about watching Fox, and I just started laughing on that one, and that it must be one of the Fox ding-dongs spreading it. So.
Yep. I now have to know. I gotta find this. So if anyone knows where this is coming from, please let me know. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Anything else on your mind, Alice?
Other than the fact that I think it's a good idea what California is planning on. And I'm just wondering can we join Canada and just let the MAGA idiots have the rest of the world? But anyways, have a good evening.
You too. Thanks, Alice. Appreciate it. No, but I think this thing in California is a good idea. This could be a moment. Could be a moment where we begin to reclaim the social compact. Something that, again, going back to the Reagan era, has been broken down and shattered and destroyed. Something that we seriously need to be talking about. Love to hear your thoughts. Is it a good idea? Should we be producing the things that we need if corporate America isn't doing it? Especially at a price that is reasonable? Should we be lining the pockets of the investor class because, well, Granny needs the insulin to survive? Is that right? Is that just? Is it fair? 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Your thoughts after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. For working people. Come to talk. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. So, good news. We're talking about the infrastructure plan and the $1 trillion plan that the Biden administration was able to usher through, and Congress actually got done. An accomplishment, and a major one, something that's going to help our country long term, something that I've been advocating for a very long time. In fact, one of the things that I was supportive of when Trump talked about it. Every week during his administration was Infrastructure Week. You remember the cute little trucks he used to bring out, little photo ops he would take of him, playing with all the little different things? Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, oh, such fond memories. Sadly, we didn't get anything actually done. A lot of parties, a lot of show, a lot of projection, a lot of performative stuff. No actual, concrete being poured, no actual plans being drawn up, no shovels in the ground, none of that stuff. But we find out now about $1 billion from that infrastructure plan is going to go to boosting 85 airports across the country, help with air traffic. Need that desperately. Also, the good folks over at the Economic Policy Institute, they've done a little mock-up of saying, hey, here's some places where we've spent this money and how this is going to be good and how this is helpful. Our friends over at In the Public Interest have come out with a couple of very specific things that I found very interesting. For instance, there's in Madison, Wisconsin, there's an organization that they started called Occupy Madison, and they're building these little villages of tiny houses. And I've talked about this before. This has kind of been my idea to deal with homelessness. That it's one place to give it's one thing to give someone a place to sleep. It's another thing to give them an actual place where they can be. And the idea of dropping a bunch of sheds on a property and creating an actual structure, or small little small homes for people to live in, actual homes that they can make their own. And then you create an entire community of these tiny houses. And in that you have all of the wraparound services that you need. Mental health treatment, drug and alcohol abuse treatment, whatever you need is right there. This way you can monitor folks, you can help them get their meds, you can do all of those things that need to be done. And they're actually doing it. And these houses are going to have solar panels so that they don't even have to pay the electric bills. And it's going to cost the city evidently about $150,000 to do this village, which is phenomenal. Also money that was given as part of the American Rescue Plan. Again, one of the major accomplishments of the Biden administration. Minnesota gave public schools a total of $34.6 million to expand their summer academic and mental health support programs. When I was a kid, and I go back to this, we had, again, I grew up in a very poor area, a housing project on the west side of Cleveland. The local school was where you had a lot of programs for kids in the summer. They had, the Police Athletic League did their thing, Junior Achievement did their thing. There were other groups that, they had their programs, and it was funded by tax dollars, and they used the public space to bring all this together. And you had a school lunch program throughout the summer. It was helpful, and it was community building, and it was educational, and it was helping families deal with child care issues and all kinds of stuff. And also, it helped identify problems. It helped encourage, all kinds of positive stuff. And I remember as Reagan became president, all of that stuff went away. That school lunch program during the summer, that hot meal that those kids got, probably the only hot meal that they got all day during the summer, gone. President Ketchup is a Vegetable changed all of that. Because, they might get lazy. And this assault on the commons, this assault on the social safety net, this assault on community that's been going on all of these years, See, the reason that Republicans, today's conservatives, are so against Joe Biden is because they have worked so hard to tear down what our grandparents' generation built. This sense of community, this sense of oneness, this sense of being united, caring about your neighbor, caring about your community, taking care of others. One of the things they hated about Hillary Clinton, that idea that it takes a village. No, that's not their ethos at all. They're the Horatio Alger, pull myself up by my bootstraps by stealing other people's bootstraps. So, look, I know some of my conservative friends, when they hear, oh my gosh, we gave some tax dollars to a city in Wisconsin to build a tiny village so homeless people can have a place to rest their head and keep their stuff and feel safe at night, they're appalled. How dare you take from me and give to them? They're not worthy. Now, these are my Christian friends. But I say this is a great thing. This is what we should be doing. You know, I think anytime I talk about homelessness, I think of one person in particular. And look, you know, we had done homeless events for years here at the program, and at some point I want to do them again when we get the time and the resources to be able to do them again. But I think of one guy. His name was Joe. And I'll as long as I live, I'll never forget it. Joe was a conservative Republican his entire life until he got sick. Had a heart attack, worked every day of his life, never missed a day of work. Had a heart attack, lost his job, lost his insurance, ended up having to rely on what tattered, broken social safety net system we have. And it saved his life. He got the medical care that he needed. But in the process, there was nothing else for him. He ended up losing his home. He ended up losing all of his possessions because when you're homeless and you have nowhere to go, where do you put your stuff? And you have no income, you can't store it anywhere. It was just one problem after another. So he ended up living in the woods. And we used to do these Hungry and Homeless for the Holiday events where we would rent out cardboard boxes and people could play homeless in the parking lot of the supermarket for a week. And he came and stayed with us. And I spent the entire week, the 10 days we were there, spent the entire time with him. And in the man, you know, probably 20 years older than me, in tears, thanking us because for those 10 days, it was the safest he had felt in a year. And for most of us, we don't even think about safety and security. But here's an old sick man basically on the side of the road that society just forgot because our system is so badly broken, because there are so many obstacles. Now, we did eventually get him into a program, and he eventually did get into a VA thing and passed away while being in a home. But it shouldn't be that difficult. We should be doing much more for each other. Just my thought. Love to hear yours. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Also, never miss a moment, never miss a program. You can download the podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, you'll find ours. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1894. That was the day thousands of Pullman strikers confronted state militia forces at the Grand Trunk Railroad crossing in Chicago. The strike began on May 11th after George Pullman slashed wages but refused to lower rents in his company town. In late June, Eugene V. Debs and the American Railway Union called for a national boycott of all Pullman cars. The boycott spread to 27 states, involving more than 150,000 workers. Attorney General Richard Olney issued an injunction declaring the strike illegal on July 2nd. The injunction failed to break the strike, but it did prevent union leaders from communicating with strikers. The next day, President Cleveland ordered troops into Chicago rail yards to crush the strike. Workers were furious. They flooded the yards, stopping trains, smashing switches, and barricading themselves with baggage cars. Fighting continued for several days as angry strikers stormed rail yards and overturned empty freight cars. Thousands of workers impacted by the depression joined in, including those stranded in the city after the Columbian Exposition. 2 strikers were shot dead on the Illinois Central Railroad on July 6th. Workers responded by setting fire to hundreds of rail cars. Now, on this day, the militia attempted to run a work train to clear the rail yard at 49th and Loomis. Thousands followed the train, showering it with bricks and stones. The troops returned gunfire, killing at least 4 and injuring dozens. Chicago unions soon voted in favor of a citywide sympathy strike, but the railroads quickly hired replacement labor. Federal troops and state militia cleared the railway for business. Main strike leaders were arrested. By the beginning of August, Pullman rehired only those strikers who agreed to never join a union. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Donald Trump's criminal attempt to steal the 2020 election failed. But it's not the only recent coup attack on our democracy. In the last few years, a cabal of right-wing zealots have plotted to seize control of the U.S. Supreme Court. By hook and crook, they've installed a 6-judge majority, and now they're using them as a political cudgel to try stealing not just a constitutional right, but an inherent human right from American women, the right to make their own reproductive decisions. By judicial fiat, the right-wing judges have decreed that the state will make birth decisions regardless of what mothers want. This is the Republican Party's current concept of small government. When the Supremes issued their government decree in June, headlines blared that the decision by, quote, conservatives on the court, quote, ends a woman's right to choose. That's wrong on 2 counts. First, there is nothing conservative about what amounts to a naked power grab by a small minority of pious ideological tyrants. Second, a human right cannot be ended. The judicial authoritarians who are perverting the court's purpose from justice to autocracy are deluding themselves if they think that 6 unelected judges ensconced in a marble bubble in Washington can deter the democratic imperative, much less the maternal authority, of millions of American women. Reality has many ways to conquer ideology. To be blunt, the right wing lost this fight the moment it won the ruling. Unfortunately, even the Biden White House doesn't get the depth of the public's outrage and determination to restore this right into law. Asked about rising anger at his inaction, Biden dismissed the critics. "I'm the only president they got," he snapped. This is Jim Hightower saying Joe might want to reflect on the vibrant history of American democracy. If leaders don't lead, the people will, even if that means getting a new president.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Well, here's a real shocker. Donald Trump quit the board of his social media company. He is no longer on the board of Truth Social. And what's even more interesting? Is a whole bunch of them evidently just before this, the bad stuff started coming down. A bunch of other people decided, well, we should go too. Trump was the chairman of the Trump Media and Technology Group. He was one of the 6 board members that were removed back in June, according to the business records there in the state. Other members of the board were that Kash Patel, Scott Glabb, who was a former assistant to Trump. He was the counsel, and Dumb Jr. They have bailed. You know who's left? This is brilliant. You know who's left? That's right, Devin Nunes and his cow. And if you will remember, when he left Congress, when he quit from Congress and said he's going to go be the CEO of Truth Social, I said, I cannot wait for the day when the press release comes out that says, I didn't get paid, I'm suing. The day is coming, and I think it's going to be even better, because I think he's probably going to go to jail. That would be even better yet. And here to share some thoughts on, well, the Truth Social and all of the other good stories going on. I've asked our good friend Sarah Burris to come share some thoughts. She is a fantastic reporter over at Raw Story, rawstory.com, that website. Sarah, What do you think? Convenient timing. The Trumps done left the building.
Clearly, Nunez was just left holding the cowbell, by himself. And I think that at some point Trump is just going to be like, I don't really know him that well. He was just a coffee boy.
He just got me coffee.
It's just going to end up being that thing. But I mean, they left the board, and then it was announced that there was going to be an investigation. Like right after that, I want to say maybe 24 hours later, something like that.
No, that was really quick.
Question, and the thing is that it was from the grand jury, and grand jury investigations are supposed to be secret. So the fact that they were going to announce, an investigation into this makes me curious as to who in the grand jury, outed all of this and told Donald Trump, hey, by the way, this is happening, to make him file something that says we're leaving the board.
Yeah, and didn't tell the guy that's wearing the kick me sign. And this is one of those things that's extremely predictable because Trump does this stuff. He's going to leave someone holding the bag. He's going to cheat somebody out of something. That's going to happen. Devin Nunes sues everybody and loses. That's going to happen. So this is kind of like a perfect marriage of, the fun and entertainment.
Oh, it's so good. I'm sad, though, that there's not a cow involved this time.
Well, there may be. But it depends on where Devin Nunes ends up.
I know, too, because the guy doesn't have a dairy, and so he doesn't actually have to live in the Fresno area anymore. So he could, move to Virginia or whatever, at which point he could find himself a nice cow and, get a house in the burbs.
There you go. Find himself a nice cow. That sounds so wrong. But the good thing is Donald Trump won't be hurting. He won't be hurting for money because he just raised the price of his coffee table book that he stole. $999 if you want a signed copy of the book of other people's pictures.
Yeah, and it's just him with, I guess, a bunch of Post-it notes that he scribbled on, and then he just, pasted them with the pictures, and then they put that through a color copier and found it and are selling it. I mean, it's not even good production quality. I don't know how it's selling, but it can't possibly be selling that well.
Look, there are people out there who, I'm amazed at what people do. For instance, we're finding out that the big rallies that he's having, they're not actually like campaign rallies that have been free. No, they're saying these are they're like rock concerts. This is how he's funding his salary. People are paying to go see him. It's like a cult kind of thing. And this has really turned into a cult. And I got to wonder if the people who are going actually understand that they're not contributing to the campaign war chest, that they think you're going to take the country back, that they're actually just lining his pockets.
And I would say, too, if you saw the video, remember whenever he did a rally, it was a paid event with Bill O'Reilly, that was really low turnout. I want to say there were maybe the first, the base, and then maybe the second tier of the arena, the stadium, or whatever the heck it was filled, and maybe it was a high school gym. Who the heck knows? It was just that small amount that was filled. So I'm curious to see, what are the crowd sizes?
Yeah, the local Chuck E. Cheese, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see where, for somebody who's got so many legal problems in the fire. I mean, you look at what's going on in New York, you look at what's going on in Georgia. You got this whole January 6th thing still going on. In fact, tomorrow you're going to have this Pat Cipollone, who has. Do you think he wants to testify and is just kind of being pulled into this, or do you think he's being compelled to testify? I personally think he wants to clear his name, but he wants to look like he's putting up a fight. Curious, your thoughts?
I could go either way on that. I do think that he is kind of looking for a way to figure out how to spruce up his reputation, because the guy's got to work for another, 10, 20 years, right? And he's got to make some kind of bank. So I don't know the extent to which he wants to work for the government ever again, or if he's just going to be in private practice. but he's not going to end up, being a paid Trump lawyer. Nobody is a paid Trump lawyer. So if you actually want to make some money, then you've got to have a reputation for being a respectable lawyer. And, most White House counsels end up being respected lawyers, except for Pat Cipollone because he works for Donald Trump. So, I mean, he's in between a rock and a hard place. And so I think he has a unique opportunity in that Cassidy Hutchinson set him up to be able to talk about things that are not necessarily that are would definitely never fall within executive privilege. Not that there is any executive privilege, but even if there were, none of the things that she said would fall under that. So I think he could just walk in and confirm everything that she says, and that would be enough just to, sink Trump.
Now, I found it interesting that Hunter Biden was trending today on Twitter. So that tells me the right-wing distraction machine is really concerned about Cipollone's testimony, even though we're not going to find out what he says. They're not going to put it on. There'll be no leaks. There'll be none of this stuff. But just the mere fact that he's testifying, that he's going in, this has got them all, and look, there are no caravans to distract us and scare us with. So you got to go to the Hunter Biden well one more time. I want to see that testimony. Why can't we see it?
That's a good question. I don't know. I really don't know. I know that the committee has done just tons and tons of these meetings, and they've taped them all, and sometimes those tapes end up in the hearings. So maybe that could happen. I assume that he negotiated it that way because he probably doesn't want Donald Trump to, see what he's saying. I remember the note that they put out that was a threat to one of the witnesses that said, Donald Trump reads the transcript.
Yeah.
And then Michael Cohen came out and said, no, he doesn't. He has somebody read them for him and then basically tell him what happened.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's not going to be a transcript that's public for a very, very long time until I think there would be an indictment. That's when you'd find a transcript.
Yeah. Any chance there's going to be an indictment, you think? I still don't think there's going to be. My every shred of my fiber says there's going to be no accountability at the end of this road. But there's that little sprout of optimism that goes, no, maybe this time is going to be different. Maybe this time you can be a real boy. I don't know. Maybe something.
I think the one thing that Cassidy Hutchinson said last week was that Trump knew that they were armed. If Pat Cipollone can confirm that, or if anybody else can confirm that they call, if Trump knew that they were armed, that all of those people were armed when he sent them to the Capitol, then there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that they could indict. There's a bunch in here that I think you could indict for. I think that would be enough to be able to say, yeah, we can make this happen. This is a sure case.
Yeah.
But I think he should. I think he absolutely should. There's enough there. I think he's just being a wiener about it.
Yeah, because that's the perfect legal term for that. You listen to the Rick Smith Show.
It's a highly technical term.
We're here with Sarah Burris. Sarah's a reporter over at Raw Story, rawstory.com. If you want to check out the incredible work that she does there. You also got a story on Rudy. Evidently, Rudy's going the Nixon route. I'm not a crook.
Oh my God! Do you not remember that? I wasn't even alive, and I know that from hearing the audio so many times, and people being like, "I am not a crook." People making fun of it. Wasn't there a Beavis and Butthead episode where they were like, "I'm not a crook, I am Cornholio." But But Rudy Giuliani is so willing to just get up in front of a camera and be like, you guys, I'm a good guy. I never did anything wrong. I am not a crook. And you're like, oh, honey, just stop. Just save yourself.
Yeah, I never took it.
If I was his lawyer, I'd just be like, you need to go in the mountains in a cabin where there's no phone or internet and stay there.
Just shut up. I never took money from the Mujahideen cult. I never took any money from terrorist organizations. No, of course. I look at Giuliani and go, how do you fall so far? I mean, really, I mean, this guy was at the top of the mountain, took on the mob, was America's mayor, and now he's groveling for Trump. I just, I don't know.
That's what I hear, though, about everybody who goes to work for Trump. Everything Trump touches dies. So, and that doesn't necessarily mean that, he's going to kill somebody. It means he's touching their career, and their career is dying. Like, it's just, and it's, for a lot of people, it's like a Greek poet on the steps of the Parthenon kind of a dying. Like, it's dramatic and it's bad.
Yeah. Kind of like our democracy. Now, the interesting thing is, a story broke just yesterday about James Comey and McCabe, and evidently Michael Cohen as well, that the IRS is going after them. And Comey and McCabe, for instance, they call them these extreme audits, which are extremely rare. What they say, it's like an autopsy without the benefit of a death benefit. I saw this and I'm going, I'm really not surprised, because this is what conservatives believe that government, how it should be run. This is what they accused Obama of doing, for instance, all during the Tea Party years. He's using the IRS to audit, which is no proof of that anywhere. So it's another one of these examples, and I've said this for years, when someone is accusing you of something, it's because they're doing it. And this is that example played out in real time.
This is the perfect example. And what happened after they decided that they were going to blame Obama for targeting his political appointees or something, they started defunding the IRS a lot. So the IRS doesn't really have a lot of money to be able to audit a whole lot of people. So I think the New York Times did an analysis of how many people end up being audited per year with these like rectal exam audits. And I think it's just like, I think in 17, it was something like 4,000. In 19, it was like 5,000. So they calculated out what the odds were that McCabe and Comey would be two of the people audited. And it's 1 in 82 million. To put that in context, if you play the state lottery, if you play your state lottery, your chances of winning are 1 in 40 million, give or take. So you have a better chance of winning your state lottery
twice.
than by getting audited like this. When they did James Comey's audit, they actually found out he had to like show a Christmas card to prove that he had children. He had to justify that he bought a toner cartridge and he didn't have a receipt for it. So he had to go and find like a proof of a credit card that he purchased it. And they ultimately ended up finding that he overpaid on his taxes by $341. So, I mean, you're talking about months and months and months of an investigation, paying someone's salary to do this. You spent thousands of dollars in government money to go after these guys and find nothing. It reminds me a lot of the special counsel that's been going after the Clinton lawyer. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, we're spending all of this money at a time when I feel like maybe we should be going after a couple of billionaires that don't want to pay their taxes.
No, I'm right there with you. But this isn't about making sure that people pay this is about punishing people. This is about punishing the disloyal. And this is, Comey not doing what he was supposed to, and McCabe not doing what he was supposed to. This is the punishment. And this is what because again, I come back to, this is what they believe Democrats do to them. Even though there's no evidence of it whatsoever, it's what they believe.
And I would say it's not just punishment for not necessarily being loyal. It's punishment for not doing what Donald Trump tells them to do.
Right.
That's the loyalty. But it's beyond that.
Yeah.
And the case of Michael Cohen is they forced him into pleading guilty for tax evasion when there was no proof. And what Cohen has said is he was like, look, there are a lot of things that you could charge me with that are completely legitimate. But that one, that makes no sense. And there was no proof of that. And he just ended up taking a deal and saying, all right, I'll plead guilty to this stuff and you'll put me in jail for a couple of weeks.
You take the deal, you move on. You can't fight.
Yeah.
You can't fight that. It's not that at all. But the reality is they've got a lot of problems, and violence being part of it. I'm looking at this thing from Michigan. These Proud Boy idiots going to a library, beating up on librarians and harassing them. And what's interesting to me about this whole thing, and you've got a great story on how afraid librarians are of these crazy people, is they never go to places where someone's going to push back. These real tough guys, these Proud Boys, they never go after someone who's gonna beat them down. It's always the weaklings. They always go after someone that's weaker than they are.
I mean, they're showing up at like libraries where they've got drag queens reading to kids. I mean, for Pride Month stuff, it's really bad. Like, I don't understand what they're thinking in terms of like how this looks from a PR standpoint. You got to be like, dude, this is not good for you. You need to like do some better stuff with your image and not be marching in the streets with hoods on.
Well, we're taking on the gay.
Yeah, it's really weird, but like librarians, who doesn't love a librarian, right? And so now they're going after these poor people who are, first of all, they're trying to cut all the books out because God forbid you read a book about, my example in my story was Walt Whitman dancing around naked in the forest. We can't have that. Or something like, Maya Angelou talking about her experience being a young Black woman in America, or anything about slavery. Like, they've got to remove all of those books. And so if you don't, then a parent is going to go after these poor librarians. Like, somehow they're trying to indoctrinate these children. And it's just like, all these women who've done this for, 15, 20, 30 years are just like, I'm done.
And that's the point. And this is where they can't be done. This is where they have to stand up, because that's the point. They want to harass them. They want to intimidate them to where good people go away and they can put crazy people in. That's the MO. It's what's going on here in my community. We got a state rep who got a piece of legislation passed that you don't need any credentials to be a substitute teacher. And now they're recruiting crazy people to go spy on. We're gonna have spies infiltrate education and keep an eye on those teachers because they're teaching math and science and stuff. And eventually they're going to break down teaching credentials to where it's all going to be the crazy people.
Well, and the thing too is that in Oklahoma, they're so low paid that it doesn't make any sense to be a teacher anymore. You make more money being a Walmart greeter. A friend of mine who is like one of those people who was born to be a teacher, like born to be an elementary school teacher and work with very, very small kids. Like, this is somebody who always has a smile on her face, the perfect person for this job. And she made more money working in the pharmacy at Target than she did as a teacher. And so she went back, took a few classes to get a pharmacy license, and now makes twice as much. Jeez. And it's like, man, of all people, we really lost somebody that was amazing. Now apply that to every community in the country.
No, and that's the reason they do this. They beat up on the weak. They beat up on the people who can't defend themselves because, well, they can. And this is where good people have to step forward and speak out. It's insane to me. But Sarah, I appreciate the time as always. Great stuff. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You as well. Our good friend Sarah Burris. Make sure you check out the work that she does over at Raw Story. Rawstory.com. The website. We'll get links out on social media. You can follow along on the work that she does. Quick break, right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1998. That was the first day of a 48-hour general strike in Puerto Rico. The strike was called in support of telephone workers who had walked off the job 3 weeks earlier. The workers were protesting government plans to sell off the publicly owned telephone service to GTE, a private company based out of Connecticut. As the strike of the telephone workers continued, more and more Puerto Ricans rallied to their cause. A general strike was endorsed by more than 50 unions, along along with other civic, political, and religious groups. The group of organizations leading the strike went by the acronym CHAOS. For 2 days, the general strike shut down almost all activity in the nation. Work at stores, banks, and the halls of government ground to a halt. Transportation ground to a halt as bus drivers and taxi cab drivers took to the picket lines. Many in the crowd waved Puerto Rican flags. In the streets, the chant could be heard, Hilga, Hilga, or strike, strike. Many also chanted, never surrender. The telephone company belongs to the people. The strike won support outside of Puerto Rico as well. The Health and Hospital Workers Union 1199 in New York issued a statement of solidarity and a $100,000 donation to help support the cause. After the success and support of the general strike, the telephone workers remained on the picket line. The strike wore on for 41 days. In the end, GTE won the day. The company promised not to retaliate against any striking workers. But when they took over, the company reduced staffing through so-called voluntary layoffs and early retirements. This is yet another chapter in the fight against privatization. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
So Sidney McCain said that she doesn't believe her husband would recognize the Republican Party. And look, I don't think so either. And it's only been a couple of years since he's been gone. And as Sarah had written in her piece earlier, the Republicans have a violence problem. They've got a problem that groups like the Proud Boys have taken over. And I think, honestly, I think they've got some real problems that they don't even know how to deal with. But I look at the one story there in Michigan, where you had a bunch of these real big tough guys, showing up at a public library, and harassing old women and librarians because they were allowing a room to be used to talk about Pride Month. And look, you agree with it, disagree with it, don't go. Don't participate. Pretty simple. This is one of those moments where this is in this country, you can have differing ideas. You don't have to agree with everything. And that's on both sides. It's not just the extreme crazy right, extreme crazy left. You don't have to agree with everything, but tolerance. That's kind of important. And I watched this video of these guys who were, I'm the president, okay, president of crazy town. What are you demanding? You're demanding that your views be filtered down to other people's children. Well, you can't have religious freedom and parental rights and all of the things that you claim you believe in and then say that your way is the only way. That's not freedom. It's not how it works. But I find it interesting, and I don't think you'd have ever seen those guys come into my neighborhood when I was a kid, because I don't think that they had made it out, or if they did, not in the same condition that they walked in. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Has it gotten too crazy? Have we gotten too intolerant of each other? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, podcast, wherever you get your podcast, you'll find ours. Make sure you find that. Good stuff.
So while the Supreme Court case is very important, it's not the only game in town.
Right-wing Supreme Court strikes major blow to EPA's ability to regulate carbon emissions. Residential natural gas stoves leak carcinogens even when turned off, study finds. Plus, clean energy jobs are booming. Fossil fuel jobs are shrinking.
All of those booms and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Getting to a wedding costs an arm and a leg. Gas is so expensive, you can bring it as a wedding gift.
This is your Green News Report.
And make sure you hold on to it, though. Your grandkids can sell it to a warlord for water.
Okay, Desi Doyen, the day that we have long predicted, long feared would come, has now arrived.
As expected, the right-wing supermajority on the stolen and packed U.S. Supreme Court has issued a disturbing landmark ruling in West Virginia versus EPA. That's a lawsuit brought by Republican attorneys general over emission standards that never took effect. The 6-3 majority ruled that despite the Clean Air Act's broad textual mandate, the EPA does not have the authority to regulate carbon dioxide emissions from power plants, because Congress didn't explicitly say regulate carbon emissions.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
Hey, what's up? AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. President Biden is delivering an impassioned plea for Americans upset by the Supreme Court's abortion ruling to speak up at the polls. The AP's Sagar Magani has the story.
The president says the High Court's conservative majority essentially issued a challenge with what he calls an extreme and wrong-headed ruling ending the constitutional right to abortion.
The challenge is go out and vote.
Saying the fastest way to restore the right is for Congress to pass a national law, but it needs more Democrats first.
Your vote can make that a reality.
The president spoke just before signing an order to protect access to abortion in states where it's still legal. Just after he spoke, a Louisiana judge ruled the state can now enforce its ban on nearly all abortions, joining more than a dozen states with similar bans or strict limits. Sagar Magani, Washington.
An investigation reveals Border Patrol agents on horseback engaged in unnecessary use of force against non-threatening Haitian immigrants last fall at the Mexico border. But
OPR found no evidence Border Patrol agents involved in this incident struck any person with their reins, intentionally or otherwise.
Video and photos of the incident made it appear agents were whipping Haitians. Border Patrol Commissioner Chris Magnus says they will learn from this and do better. Mourners remembered a woman who worked tirelessly at her synagogue and a man who loved art in the first formal services for the 7 people killed at a 4th of July parade in Highland Park, Illinois. The Mariposa Grove section of Yosemite National Park is closed. A wildfire there has quintupled in size and is threatening a grove of California's famous giant sequoia trees. There are no reports of severe damage to the grove's named sequoias, such as the 3,000-year-old grizzly giant. This is AP News.
If you were lied to when buying a timeshare and want
KCAA.
What does the WeatherBug app tell you?
My commute will be a doozy today.
Pack my allergy meds.
Lightning. Pick up a pizza, not a tennis racket.
With more free map layers than any other weather app, WeatherBug tells you more of what you need